Hey everyone, Dr. Jan Seward here this week of November the 3rd for the weekly read. Today I want to talk about asteroids. Asteroids are small dwarf-like planets or bits of planetary matter that exist in a belt between Mars and Jupiter. There is another larger belt also called the Kuiper belt that's out past Neptune. The asteroids that we primarily work with in astrology exist in this asteroid belt that's closer to the Earth between Mars and Jupiter. And asteroids are, as I said, sometimes called dwarf planets. They do have a large or significant impact in your life depending on where they show up in your chart. Typically, these asteroids are named for women, and they really talk about where the divine feminine lives in your life. There are four I want to talk about in this weekly read because they're lining up in a way that I think we're seeing on a global scale right now. Those asteroids are Vesta, who represents our caregiving, how we attend and nurture. The other one is Ceres, and that's also about nurturing and nourishment. There's also Black Moon Lilith, which I'll talk a little bit about. She exists in everyone's chart and has a very significant representation in the life. And finally, there's Pallas Athena, and she represents the warrior spirit and wisdom. Currently in our world stage, we're dealing with issues of human rights, and in the United States, we're dealing very specifically with issues of nourishment and nurturing. At this moment, a large food subsidy program called SNAP, which is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, is not available, and there are a lot of reasons that that's the case, but it's represented astrologically by this asteroid series, which has everything to do with how we feed our people and how we nourish and nurture the people we care about and care for. At the time of this reading, it sits in the chart in the fourth house, literally our homes, our residences, where people live. And food scarcity in the home is what we're looking at right now. It's important to note that Ceres is currently going backwards, appearing to go backwards or retrograde. And that can indicate the fact that this energy of nurturing and nourishing isn't functioning in the way that it should. Also, it's sitting on what's called the Aries Point. Ceres right now is at 3 degrees in the sign of Aries. Anything that aspects the Aries Point, which is anywhere between 0 and 3 degrees, is incredibly impactful for the entire world. And so at this moment, this is what we're looking at. Vesta, which is how we care for the world, how we care for others in all ways, impeccable ways, is in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is that shining fire. It's mutable fire. It's truth speaking and truth seeking. But at the time of this reading, it's in the 12th house. It's in a hidden house. And that is a sign of not really, again, functioning in a way where it can be seen and acknowledged. We have another asteroid, which is currently in the sign of Scorpio. And that asteroid is Black Moon Lilith. Now, what's interesting and important about the Black Moon is that it represents, let me just back up a little bit. And in a minute, my dogs are going to come in, just so you know, they're coming back from their walk and they always come and say hello. So they may make an appearance. Black Moon Lilith. Lilith is an ancient representation of the goddess. She's been with us since Babylonian times. In biblical mythology, Lilith was the first Eve. She was the original Eve in the garden, but she didn't submit. She didn't submit to Adam in power over her. And because of that, she was kicked out of the garden and she went to the desert. And she lived fiercely and fearlessly and created her own garden and returned into her power. So wherever Black Moon Lilith exists in your chart, it represents any place in the life where you're being invited to take back your power, to look at where you may have been exiled and where you can take back your power. Currently in the chart for the world, Lilith is in the sign of Scorpio. Scorpio is the ultimate healer, the ultimate transformer, the ultimate user of power for healing and transformation. It's the sign of the shaman. So now we have Black Moon Lilith in the house of the shaman and in a very special relationship with humanitarian concerns. It's in the 11th house of humankind, humanitarianism, and how do we step up and step in for healing? What healing has been exiled in our own lives, but also in group consciousness? And what are we being invited to call back into our lives? And then finally, we talked about the asteroid of Pallas, Pallas Athena, who is currently working her wisdom in the chart. And she is also conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer. So where can we look at where our wounds are? How can we use wisdom to heal those wounds? And it's really important to remember that Pallas is a warrior. So it looks like at this time we're all being called, invited to, called to being warriors for healing in the softest possible way, feeding people, feeding each other, making sure everyone is fed and nourished and cared for in impeccable ways. That seems to be the reading for this week. I wish you caring, nourishment, nurturing of yourself, of your communities, of each other. You know, there's this beautiful allegory that I was told, and it goes like this. Somebody was invited to look at what hell looks like. So they went, down into a conference room, very large conference table, a lot of people sitting around the table. Everyone had very long chopsticks. And in hell, people were trying to feed themselves with these very long chopsticks. Then the person was invited to go up and look at what heaven looks like. Take the elevator up, same kind of conference room, same long chopsticks. But instead, the people sitting around the table, instead of trying to feed themselves with the long chopsticks, they were feeding each other. Let's all feed each other. Be well. Speak to you next week.